call the meeting to order. That was a little soft gavel. Okay, please call the roll.
Toohill.
Yes.
Esty.
Yes.
Flournoy.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Rasmussen.
Yes.
Gandy.
Yes.
Ham.
Here.
Thank you. Any changes to the agenda tonight, council? I do know that under committee and board reports, we have strike the Public Safety and Transportation Committee. That was not supposed to be there. So,
Thank goodness.
yeah. So, nothing else. Let's go on to the consent agenda. Approval of the minutes of the July 10th, 2023 council meeting. Approval of the July 21, 2023 payroll in the amount of $153,205.83. Acceptance of the Beautification Commission minutes. Acceptance of the Ways and Means Committee minutes. Acceptance of the Volunteer Center Committee minutes. Acceptance of the Water and Sewer Committee minutes. Resolution authorizing funds transfers. Approval of fiscal year 24 USDA Step 1 debt in the amount of $155,700. Approval of the fiscal year USD wastewater treatment debt in the amount of $927,540. Approval of fiscal year 24 USDA Step 2 debt in the amount of $336,612. Approval of ACH to the Department of Revenue in the amount of $1662 and 19 cents. Approval of liquor license for the Broth Lab, Depot House, Cafe Paradiso, and Torino's Pizza and Steakhouse. Approval of total claims in the amount of $1,012,227.62. We had two claims over $75,000. One to SEIA Small Cities and Counties for the amount of $78,962.51. That was for health insurance for employees. And Wicks Construction Inc. for $398,954.51 for Highway 1. So I would take a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Moved by Gandy.
Second.
Second by Esty. Any discussion?
Recommend approving paying all the claims. I reviewed them and everything's in order.
Great. Any other discussion or questions? Now please call the roll.
Gandy.
Yes.
Esty.
Yes.
Toohill.
Yes.
Ham.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Rasmussen.
Pass.
Flournoy.
Yes.
Pass. Sorry. Flournoy. Yes. Did I get everybody? She threw me. Okay.
Okay, so we'll move on to public forum and appearances. We have Dustin Veenstra from our audit, so he's going to talk about that and allow council to have questions for him. So, Dustin, please go ahead.
Hello, everybody. My name is Dustin Veenstra with Gronewold, Kyhnn & Company. We were the auditors for the city of Fairfield for the year ended June 30, 2022. I'm here today to go over our results of the audit of the financial statements for the city of Fairfield and briefly go over the financial statements for the city for the fiscal year. If you have the report with you, you can turn to page 2 is where we'll start, and you can follow along there. This is our independent auditor's report. This report is slightly different from prior year due to the form because of changes in auditing in our auditing standards and professional standards as well. This is a standard report for an unmodified opinion on the city's financial statements under the cash basis of accounting. This is what the city is looking for because it means that the city's financial statements, in our opinion, are fairly stated in all material respects. Wanted to note as well that even though we help prepare these financial statements, these are the city's financial statements, and our responsibility is to provide an opinion on them by conducting an audit in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards. If you would then turn with me to page 5, this is the first of 3 required financial statements for the city. This financial statement reports all funds of the city and shows how much of the city's disbursements are paid with specific program receipts and how much of the disbursements are paid with general receipts. If you start looking on the disbursements column, it is broken down by governmental activities and business type activities. The governmental activities are broken down by function, such as public safety and public works. And the business type activities are broken down by type, as such as water, utilities, sewer utilities, airport, and solid waste utilities. During the year, the city dispersed $12.444 million of disbursements related to governmental activities and had $14.395 million of disbursements related to the business type activities. These disbursements are reduced by receipts for specific services, operating grants, contributions, and restricted interest, and capital grants, contributions, and restricted interest. During the year, the total charges for services, receipts received by the city was $8.173 million, and total operating grants, contributions, restricted interest totaled $2.166 million. $1.3 million of that amount was related to road use tax receipts. And also, during the year, the city received $66,000 of capital grants, contributions, and restricted interest. Under the heading of net disbursements, receipts, and changes in cash balance, in cash basis net position, this part of the financial statement describes how much of the receipts exceeded disbursements in the program receipts and disbursements, or vice versa. During the year in governmental activities functions, the city dispersed $9.3 million more disbursements than program receipts, and in the business type activities, dispersed $7 million more of program disbursements than program receipts, for a total of $16.443 million of program receipts program disbursements over program receipts. These net disbursements of the governmental activities and business type activities are paid with the use of general receipts, which is on the next page. The general receipts received by the city include things such as property taxes, which are the first two lines on page 6 of $4.6 million and $1.1 million. It includes tax increment financing receipts of $309,000, local option sales tax receipts of $1.3 million, and the American Rescue Plan Act receipts of $779,000. During the fiscal year, the city issued $3 million of general obligation, corporate purpose, and refunding bonds. That is included there in the governmental activities column of $1.6 million and $1.4 million. Also during the year, the city refunded $1.35 million of prior general obligation debt, which is the negative $1.35 million in the governmental activities column. In total, in the governmental activities, total receipts received by the city were $1.081 million more than disbursements, compared to disbursements by the city in governmental activities. For the business type activities for the city received $10.252 million of loan proceeds during the year. $9.5 million of these loan proceeds were related to the USDA sewer capital loan notes. So in total, the business type activities receipts were $3.232 million higher than disbursements during the year. In total, the city received $4.313 million more receipts than disbursements during the year. If you turn to the next page, on page 7, this is the second audited financial statement of the city. This financial statement reports the activity of the governmental funds of the city, showing 5 major funds separately. Governmental funds account for services provided paid primarily with tax receipts. The first column of this financial statement is related to the general fund, which records the general operating activity of the city. During the year, the city received $4.5 million of receipts in the general fund, $4.699 million of spent $4.699 million of disbursements during the year in the general fund, which resulted in a change in cash balance of $193,000, increase of cash balance in the general fund during the year, and the ending cash balance for the general fund was $4.367 million. The second column in this financial statement is related to the road use tax fund, which records road use tax receipts and related disbursements. During the year, the city received $1.3 million of road use tax receipts and dispersed $2.8 million of related public works disbursements. $1.2 million of these disbursements were related to the HMA resurfacing projects of the city. The next column of this financial statement is the local option sales tax fund, which records local option sales tax receipts and related disbursements. During the year, the city received $1.3 million of local option sales tax receipts. The next column is related to the debt service fund, which records the activity of debt service activity for the general obligation debt for the city. During the year, the city dispersed $1.3 million of of disbursements related to general obligation debt service payments, such as principal and interest payments. $1.4 million of the $3 million GO debt issued during the year was recorded in this fund, along with the $1.35 million of disbursements related to the refunding of the prior general obligation debt. The next column is related to the capital projects fund of the city, which records the capital project activity of the city. Disbursements in this fund were totaled $1.6 million. $1.3 million of these disbursements were related to the 2nd Street, 9th Street, and C Street paving projects. In total, for the governmental activities funds, the city received $11.695 million in receipts, dispersed $12.444 million, and the total change in cash balances for the governmental activities was $1.081 million, which resulted in an ending cash balance within the governmental activities funds of $10.344 million. Overall, this fund balance is a good position for governmental activities for the city, as Note 3 of the financial statements states that the city had $6.5 million of general obligation debt outstanding at June 30, 2022, which is a $4 million that the governmental activities has in excess of the total debt, of the total general obligation debt. If you turn to page 9, this is the third and final required financial statement for the city. This is related to proprietary funds and records the activities for the major enterprise funds of the city. Enterprise funds account for the services paid for by users of these services, such as water and sewer funds, water and sewer utilities. During the year, the water fund received $3.2 million of operating receipts and dispersed $1.8 million of operating disbursements, netting a $1.396 million of operating receipts over operating disbursements. The sewer fund received $3.4 million of operating receipts and expended $1.4 million of operating disbursements during the year, resulting in a $2.015 million of operating receipts over disbursements. These net operating receipts are used to pay for debt and capital projects related to these funds. During the year, the water fund expended $368,000 of capital projects and $440,000 for debt service payments. The sewer fund received the $10.252 million of revenue note proceeds, of which the majority of that was from the USDA sewer revenue note. Expended $2.7 million on capital projects and expended $6.7 million on debt service payments. In total, the enterprise funds had a change in cash balances of $3.2 million and resulted in an ending cash balance for the enterprise funds of $10.993 million. In Note 3 of the financial statements, the city has $41 million of revenue debt related to the water and sewer funds. But since the total net operating receipts over disbursements is $3.2 million, this appears to be enough to cover the annual payments related to these debt service payments. After that is the last financial statement, and after that there are some notes related to these financial statements that go into more depth of the city activity. But if you would turn with me to page 49, this is the schedule of expenditures of federal awards, which is a required statement related to a single audit that we performed for the city of Fairfield. A single audit is required when the city expends over $750,000 of federal awards. During the year, we performed this single audit, and this schedule summarizes all of the expenditures related to federal awards. The top line on this statement is related to the U.S. Department of Agriculture, Water and Waste Disposal Systems for Rural Communities. During the year, the city expended $2.5 million of federal awards, which were primarily related to the sanitary sewer and wastewater treatment projects. These federal awards were received in the form of a USDA loan and grants. The bottom line of this summary is from the U.S. Department of Treasury, COVID-19 Coronavirus State and Local Fiscal Recovery Funds, during which is more commonly known as ARPA, American Rescue Plan Act funds. During the fiscal year, the city appropriated $250,000 of these funds to a local child care center. So in total, the total expenditures related to federal awards during the fiscal year was $2.8 million. And that completes the financial statements for the city for the fiscal year 2022. We have some additional reports in the back, starting on page 50, but if you have any questions, I'd be happy to stop now and take them, or I could continue if you would like.
Any questions, council, at this point? Okay, go ahead and continue.
On page 50, we have our next independent auditor's report on internal control of financial reporting and on compliance and other matters. This report is required for all audits conducted in accordance with government auditing standards. During our audit, we considered the city's internal controls as when selecting and performing our audit procedures. This report is provided to report on our consideration of the city's internal control and on compliance of certain provisions of laws, regulations, and grants, but not to express an opinion on those internal controls of the city or the compliance of the city. We noted some findings of internal control and non-compliance in the schedule of findings and question costs, which we will cover later in this report. If you turn to page 52, this is another report that is required for audits that are performed in accordance with the Single Audit Act related to the federal programs we discussed earlier in the schedule of expenditures of federal awards. This report is on the compliance for each major federal program and on internal control over compliance required by the Uniform Guidance, which is how we performed our single audit. This report is similar to the report I just discussed, but it is related to the major federal program, which was the USDA loans and grants I discussed earlier on the schedule of expenditures of federal awards. In our opinion, the City of Fairfield complied with all compliance requirements related to the major federal program that were direct material to that major federal program. The internal control over compliance on that major federal program, we did not disclose an opinion on that due to the same reasons as the previous report, and it was only used to document our consideration of internal controls over the major federal program. If you turn now with me to page 55, this is the first page of the schedule of findings and question costs. This part 1 is a summary of our auditor's results. Step 6 of this part 1 states that we did not disclose any non-compliance, which is material to the financial statements, and we did not disclose any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies in internal control over the major program during our testing under the Single Audit Act. Step G of this part 1 states that the major federal program, which was tested during the Single Audit Act, was the water and waste disposal systems for rural communities. You go to the next page, on page 56.
Can I ask a question? What does it mean when it says the city did not qualify as a low-risk auditee?
So to qualify as a low-risk auditee, the city must report their financial statements in the accrual basis. Since it's reported as a cash basis, it does not qualify as low-risk auditee. All that means is we must test a certain percentage of federal awards if it's a low risk or non-low risk entity. For a low risk entity, we were required to test 40% of the disbursements related to the CFA, and testing on the water and waste disposal systems for rural communities met that requirement.
So if we were low risk, what percentage would you test?
20%. On page 56 is part 2, our findings related to the financial statements. These document our internal control deficiencies that we noted during our test of the during our audit of the financial statements. Comment 2022-001, segregation of duties. This comment is common for all small cities for all small cities that we perform audits on. Due to the size of the city cannot employ enough people to perform each and every step of the internal control process. But this is more of a disclosure comment because during our audit, our internal control consideration noted that for the size of the city has proper internal controls related to financial reporting. This comment again is for disclosure purposes only, so that the city council can know its importance in the role of financial reporting and to review financial information and other disbursements and receipts for the city at its city council meetings. On page 57, comment number 2022-002, called financial reporting. We noted that the city has cash balances held for its employee health plan that we noted were not recorded on the city's records, and that the city did not record all interest earned on their certificate of deposits during the year. This comment was noted because the city records the CD interest, the certificate of deposit interest, when the CD matures instead of when it is earned by the CD. A recommendation is that the city should record the cash held by the employee for the employee health plan, and that the certificate of deposit interest should be recorded when it is earned instead of when the CD matures. The final comment related to internal controls for the city is on page 58 and is under 2022-003, bank reconciliations. During our audit procedures, we noted that some of the city's bank accounts were not included in the city's bank reconciliations, and that these bank reconciliations were not documented as reviewed by an independent individual. Including all accounts on bank reconciliations improves the internal controls for the city by detailing all of the city's bank accounts and how they reconcile to the city's records. And the independent review helps the internal control of the city by reducing the probability of mistakes being made on the reconciliations, because it would be reviewed by an independent third person. Go to the next page of page 59.
Excuse me, I just want to note that
Yes.
Rebecca, the report you get every month fixes that.
Yes.
So we're doing that
I
now.
did note that. After year end, we did see some of those, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. In part 3, findings and question costs for federal awards, we noted no internal control deficiencies or instances of non-compliance related to the major federal program. The final part of this schedule is the part 4, other findings related to statutory reporting requirements. There are 15 comments on this part. We noted 7 findings during our audits, and the remaining 8 are for informative disclosures only, and no non-compliance was noted for these sections. I'll briefly go over the 7 findings that we noted. On comment 2022A for the certified budget, we noted that the community and economic development function went over budget during the year ended June 30, 2022. And our recommendation is that the city should track the disbursements so that that will not go over budget, and if it was about to go over budget, the city should amend their budget in accordance with the code of Iowa.
So are you saying amended before it goes over?
Yes, the budget must be amended before the actual disbursements go over the budgeted disbursements. Turn to page 60 on comment to 2022H, deposit and investments, we noted that the depository resolution approved by the city council did not include one of the library's bank accounts. Even though the library does have separately maintained records where they record separately all of their bank account information and their other activity during the year, the city should record or should adopt a resolution that includes all deposits that the city has, including library funds. Comment 2022J, the annual urban renewal report. While reviewing the fiscal year 2022 annual urban renewal report, we noted that the amount in the levity authority summary, which is the main summary of that report, did not tie, the beginning and ending cash balances did not reconcile to the city's special revenue urban renewal tax increment financing fund. A recommendation that is that these reports should be reviewed to ensure that they are recording the activity in the urban renewal tax increment fund properly. The next comment is on page 61, 2022L, separately maintained records. During our audit, we noted that the city maintains several bank accounts, for example, the Indian Creek Escrow, the Library Memorial, and other library accounts that are not recorded on the city's records, and thus are not included on the city's annual budget, monthly financial information, or annual financial reports. Our recommendation is that all of these accounts should be recorded on the city's accounting software and reported in the city's budget, the monthly financial reports, and the annual financial report. The next page of page 62 has the next finding of 2022M, economic development. During the year, the city donated or dispersed $26,000 to the Fairfield Economic Development Association, which is a chamber of commerce type organization. There isn't necessarily anything inappropriate about this disbursement, but the city needs to document the public purpose for disbursements related to economic development, such as this payment to this development association. Our recommendation would be to, in the city council minutes, or just have a general discussion on how the city council believes it meets the public purpose for city funds. Next comment is 2022N on the same page, interfund transfers. All transfers between funds of the city need to be approved by a resolution by the city council. During our audit testing, we noted some transfers, interfund transfers, that were not completed for the transfers. Our recommendation is to complete all, to approve transfers, approve resolutions for all transfers during the fiscal year. And our final comment is on page 63, related to 2022-0, the annual financial report. During our testing, we noted that the annual financial report for fiscal year 22, that the beginning balances did not tie to the prior ending balances, which caused the beginning balances and the ending balances of the AFR to be incorrect and not tied to the city's records. Our recommendation is that the city should establish procedures to ensure that the AFR's beginning and ending balances are properly supported and agreed to the city's records. And this completes our schedule of findings, requests, and costs, and our report on the city of Fairfield's financial statements for fiscal year 22. I'll be happy to take any questions that you have for me. Yes.
On part 4, the comment 2022M about economic development,
Yes.
we've been giving FEDA $26,000 a year for over a dozen years.
Yes.
So how do we, it's just in our budget.
Yeah. Yes.
Do you make a verbal comment, or does it be in writing, or what do you suggest?
It could be something such as a resolution stating that this is how the city believes this meets public purpose and what the Economic Development Association is going to do with the money, and then if it's approved by resolution, documenting the city's consideration of public purpose. That would be good enough, I think.
Have we dispersed the 24 physical funds yet?
No.
So we should do that, I guess, this year.
Yeah. I've got a note of that, Doug, that before we disperse those funds, that we work with Josh. I think we should get a document between us that really states, you know, their activities and why we feel it's a public purpose, and, you know,
Yes.
and then,
Right.
like you said, resolution, maybe we'll come back with a resolution for the
Getting some sort of
council to-
report from this association detailing how the funds are spent is
Yeah.
another good way to document the public purpose of the funds spent.
How about the $10,000 grant that we referred to them? That we had a housing development grant that the city was awarded, and we passed that money on to FEDA. Should we do the same thing there also?
I guess that would depend how the grant agreement was. If you applied for the grant for them specifically, then not necessarily you wouldn't need to. But if you're just dispersing just general city funds for the development association, it should be.
Has that been dispersed yet?
Yes. It was stated in the grant that we were passed through for that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Was it on?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was
That would-
stated in the grant.
Yeah.
That'd
But
be-
we did have to vote on passing, on
Mm,
allowing
yeah.
it to be leaving the city coffers.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
The code that you are referencing concerning the Development Association, Chapter 15, 401 and 403, they all define economic development as a public purpose, don't they?
I am not 100% aware of that, no, but yes, economic development is one of the functional expense disbursements for the city, so yeah, it would be. But paying this $26,000 to this development association where there isn't any like specific reason or like specific purpose for other than like an annual contribution, the public purpose of that disbursement gets, I guess maybe questionable will be the right word. Just the more documentation on how it's spent, the more, the better of how it's being used for public purpose.
Great, thank you. Additional questions, council?
Can you take a quick one from the floor?
Very quick, yes.
Yeah, okay. I think, if I got it right, you mentioned that water and sewer had a net of something like $3.2 million of proceeds over operating costs, and something like 200,000+ went into capital projects and 37,000 went to debt service. Is that about right? Was I hearing that right?
Yes, the water fund had $1.3 million of operating receipts over operating disbursements, and the water fund dispersed $368,000 of disbursements for capital projects and $400,000 for debt service. Yes.
That speaks of very efficient operation in some sense.
Yes. Yes, it does.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, thank you very
Yeah,
much.
thank you.
Appreciate you coming and going through everything, and I guess if there's any follow-up from any council members I think of later, we'll let you know.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Okay?
Thank you.
Great,
Thank you.
thank you. Okay, next up is Brittney Tiller, regarding a grant opportunity.
Yes. I've never learned anything about a city audit until now, so that was quite enlightening. So I'm here to talk about two different grant opportunities. So my name is Brittney Tiller. The hat that I'm wearing tonight is I'm a Natty Conservation Committee member. And unfortunately, Ron Blair couldn't be here tonight, but him and I are working together on writing two different grants that would be on behalf of this city. These are both for two projects out at Pleasant Lake. The first grant is called the Water Recreation Access Cost Share Program, RAC for short. And this is funded by the Marine Fuel Tax. And the goal with this one, this grant, is we would like to gravel the lane down to the Pleasant Lake boat ramp, and then actually gravel a parking lot and then redo the actual boat ramp. Currently, the DNR fisheries unit is unable to test the water quality at Pleasant Lake because of the condition of the boat ramp. I believe in this fiscal year, the Park and Rec Department is doing a new boat ramp at Bonneville Lake, and this is going to be the same kind. That boat ramp is coming out of the General Park and Recreation Fund, I believe, so hopefully this will help kind of save some regular park and rec funds for the future.
Brittney, is
Yeah.
that boat ramp just west of the current parking lot? Just down a little way?
Yes, yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Okay.
And there's a separate right as you pull off Pleasant Lake, there's a lane. It's basically dirt right now. So this would gravel that entire lane
Okay.
down the parking lot and then have a granular gravel boat ramp as well.
Okay.
The boat ramp is being modeled off of a current boat ramp that's been in place for several years that Washington County Conservation has. It's been given the stamp of approval by the Washington County Conservation and also the DNR Fisheries Unit that says they are able to test the water at that area, and it's withheld their standards. It's just a more cost-effective way rather than doing cement. So that's one portion of the grant. That grant we will be applying for approximately 75% of the cost. The total cost we're estimating is $7,000. The remaining 25%, we are confident that we can fund, do some local fundraising to make up that remaining amount. The second grant
Can I ask a quick question?
yeah.
How does the condition of the boat ramp affect the ability of the DNR to test water?
Yeah, so they can't get their boat backed into the water.
Oh, they can't launch the boat.
Yes. Yeah, sorry. Yes, they have to test the water from a boat. Yes. Yeah, any other questions on that grant? I should have paused. The second grant that we are writing is, it's through the REAP pie, I guess you could say, but it's specifically for cities. It's called the City Parks and Open Spaces. This one's a little bit bigger chunk that we haven't got our final numbers on budget yet, but the main goal with this is to do some habitat restoration around the lake, very similar to what's being done right now with we call it the BAT grant, the BAT restoration
I
program.
forgot to
Yeah.
attach your stuff, so I'll pass it around.
And I have a few more. I can do these. I think I got one more here. Here we go. There you go. Okay. That will help you. Yes, yes. Okay, wonderful. So as you're looking at the actual map of Pleasant Lake, I believe it's labeled on there. Tract 1 and Tract 2 are what would be being pursued through this grant. Track 3 is what is currently being worked on right now through that bat restoration grant. So this will involve invasive species removal. Currently, Track 1 is the only way to get to the area would be by boat, in theory, but it's so thick with invasive species, honeysuckle, that I tried to do it and I couldn't even get out of the boat. So this will clear the invasive species out, and then it's been recommended by the forester to actually, because there's not very many desirable trees in the area, to replant with some oaks and walnuts and hickory as well. So then also part of it's
coming up.
it's like a two-phase. So also part of the Open Spaces grant is a easy dock canoe kayak launch. So currently there are 2 sections of the easy dock out there, and then it's kind of like a homemade gangplank if anyone's been out there recently. So this would replace the aging gangplank and put in a new one. And then it would add the canoe and kayak launch. This is a much easier way for people to get in and out of the boats, especially for those who getting in and out of the canoe or kayak is the hardest part of the whole trip. So there's that piece. And then also there'll be some interpretive signage that is through the same company that the Natty Prairie has. So it will be kind of a cohesive feel between the 2 properties that neighbor each other. Kind of a broad base
How
of
much
the
for that
grants.
one, approximately?
I'm going to guess, we've kind of fluxed our numbers a little bit, but I would say maybe around $30,000. The Easy Dock, so I've met with Doug and Melanie on this, and also the Pam and her crew out there at Park and Recreation. I haven't had a chance to meet with Calvin yet, but in the Easy Dock, we went ahead and just had them quote the installation of the dock. So it really won't be anything additional on anyone's plate, except for if we in the future add some trails, some rustic like mode trails. But we've talked with both the water department and the park and recreation department, and they were comfortable with that. We can't add the trails into the grant because they wouldn't be ADA compliant, since they would just be mode trails for that.
Does that dock stay in year-round?
It does, I believe. Yeah.
They have them at a number of the surrounding, like Lake Wapello has one and Geode has one.
Yeah. And it's, I did reach out to other county conservations to ask what docks they recommended, and they said the Easy Dock brand is like the Cadillac brand. So they said it lasts a really long time, and they were fond of it. So we are just asking for your stamp of approval before we submit. The REAP grant is due on August 15th, and the RAC grant is due at the end of September.
And you asked me to write
I
a
did,
letter
yes.
of support.
Yep. But we wanted to dot our T's and cross our I's in case we're ever audited on it, so.
Yeah. So I think
Are we
it's-
gonna be a flow-through for these?
So the funds would go directly to the city
To
on
the
both
city.
of these,
Okay.
yep.
Okay.
So we talked about that they would just go through the park and rec, budget, I guess.
Not through the foundation.
No, they'd have to go, to
Yeah.
the city.
Right. Okay.
Well, I don't know. I will trust you guys on that, but that was what we had talked about.
Right? I mean, that's
Yeah.
what you're thinking, Rebecca. Okay.
So I'll make the motion to council that we approve the submission of these grants on behalf of the city by the NATI committee.
Yep.
I'll second that.
Well, not done.
Oh, not done.
Compound motion. And have the mayor write a letter of support, or the city write a letter of support for the two grants.
Thank you.
I'll still second that.
Okay. Any questions or discussion? Not, please call the roll.
Flournoy,
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Toohill,
Yes.
Gandy,
Yes.
Esti,
Yes.
Rasmussen.
Yes.
Ham.
Yes.
Great.
Thank you for doing that.
Yes,
Yes.
thank you.
You might need those again.
Yeah.
I think those are really nice additions. Thank you guys for working on those. Yeah. Great. Under resolution action items and ordinances, our first action item is consideration of attorney service fees. Doug, are you gonna talk about this?
Well, okay,
You wanna
so,
enlighten everybody?
yeah.
Let's put it that way.
So we had, so we already approved an agreement with John's firm to pay for a retainer fee for him and up to $22.50 for an intern. But that was supposed to begin in July, and this bill is for June. So since the council had approved starting in July, I thought the council had to address the payment in June separately.
Yeah, I don't think you need to address it anymore. I'm just going to withdraw the June request. I had made the request in February originally for exactly the same thing. It then got discussed in May, June, and July when it was finally approved. I had already hired a person a month and a half before, so I'll eat the $2,000. If I have to go through this again, I'll ask you about it a lot sooner, okay?
All right.
All right.
Is that what council wants to do? I'm just asking.
I mean, it's very generous of John, but we should pay him for the work he's done. I think. So I would
Well,
move that.
Hold on, Paul. I drafted the letter of understanding that Doug is reading from, and I put in the July 1st stuff. So at the time, we were still waiting to see if the council would approve it on July 10th. So I wasn't looking to argue about this, I just wanted to get it approved. So I'm willing to forego that this time. I will probably have another month of waiting to see if this intern is working for me or not. So it isn't that you won't be getting another claim from me. That will happen. But I'm hopeful that I could bring you back something where we have a proposal for a more longer-term arrangement with a person. But I'm not going to commit to that until we're through the summer internship. Fair enough?
Fair enough.
Okay. Okay, so, were you looking for a certain action item, Rebecca?
We
Just-
need to, nope, not with that.
No?
I think.
Okay, so we'll just move on. All right. Thank you, John.
Fair enough.
Next action item is consideration of Parks Buildings Project. Melanie?
Okay. So, on your June 12th council meeting, you acknowledged RG Construction as the low bidder on the two parks building, the Waterworks Shelter and the Chautauqua Maintenance Building. To remind you that these buildings had a portion of the proposed project to be paid for by the Ed Felger estate with a portion paid through city through a city budget. The bids were high, and after a month of discussing this with a lot of different people and cutting out as much as we could, we still couldn't get to a point that we could afford the project. And after then discussing it with the estate manager, as much as the estate was, and John, correct me if I'm wrong, as much as the estate was glad to participate in a city project that was beyond what the estate initially outlined, they were glad to do that when it fit within budget, but once it fit within budget, they said, let's bring it back to what was initially requested in the estate.
Now, let's talk numbers a minute.
Okay.
The estate gave $500,000 with the idea that there'd be a couple of these things happen. And then they have about $50,000 of additional income in the estate in the last year or two that the estate's been open. So there's $550,000 that the estate is happy to have the town spend on this. But City of Fairfield also is putting in, what, 170?
Yeah.
All right,
160,
so
yeah.
you've got 720, I
18.
guess.
Yeah.
And that's still what, 200,000 short?
Yes, after we removed some items, changed the quality of material from the Cadillac to, I don't know, what's an average vehicle anymore? To average. I mean, we didn't go bottom. We didn't go bottom of the barrel, and moved some work to be done by city water and sewer departments. We still were $200,000 short of everything. So, and that was total project and cost. So that included some of the design engineering the architectural assistance that I needed. There's some minor surveying that's needed as part of this project. And so we still were not able to get to that. The plan moving forward, first would be to ask the council to reject the bid from RG Construction. Then Calvin and myself and the state, we're going to look at some different locations for the waterworks shelter, possibly downsizing it. The utilities associated with the waterworks shelter was one of the things that really caught us off guard for the cost. And so if we can save on the sanitary sewer, that would be beneficial. Again, and just downsizing the cost. And then the Chautauqua building would be pared back to just bathrooms alone, with the 168 that was designated for the maintenance garage would become just a shell, a metal building that nothing else really attached to it, no site grading, very minimal utilities, and we'll bid that out at a later time. So we're going to break it up into the pieces and kind of build what we can as we can afford it, and move forward based off of again, what we find we can afford.
Mel, is one of your alternates at Waterworks Park going to be to use this sanitary sewer system that's already there?
We're gonna look into that option of putting something, again, don't know if it's even going to be a shelter or if it's just going to be bathrooms, but looking at something in the existing location. Again, our first option was not to go there because that sewer line goes through the water treatment plant. Have no idea of the age or condition of it, so we'll do some investigative work on that. There's a lot of redesign and things to consider and things to discuss as far as how it benefits, how we can get something that benefits Waterworks Park as well as meets the desires of the estate. So we'll, back to square one. We'll keep working on it. Anyway, so for the action item tonight, again, I would like you, the council, to reject the bids from RG Construction. Also, I'd like to publicly thank RG Construction for the time, not only in putting together their initial bid, but they also did work with us a lot over the last month in trying to find something that worked within our scope. They were creative and helpful and answered lots of questions from an engineer, not an architect, on this stuff. And it's unfortunate that we weren't able to come to a conclusion that would be good for the city and for them, but they were great to work with in the time that we worked with them.
So hopefully we'll come back to that and they'll have another opportunity to
Yeah.
bid. So, okay, so for now, we're looking for a motion to reject this bid.
So moved.
Moved by Anderson.
Second.
Second by Rasmussen.
Yes.
Okay. Any other discussion? Now please call the roll.
Anderson?
Yes.
Rasmussen?
Yes.
Flournoy?
Yes.
Ham?
Yes.
Gandy?
Yes.
Esti?
Yes.
Toohill?
Yes.
Great. Next action item is consideration to accept Highway 1 water main project as final.
So this was the project that was constructed last year from Hempstead to Adams Avenue by Lawson Construction. They did most of the work last year, with coming back this spring to do the seeding. We had held all but $15,000 worth of retainage, and Steve Renninger and I walked through the project, checked the tracer wire and everything, and it looks great. Some of the best seeding that we have seen on projects in a very long time. So we would recommend accepting the project as final, and we would request to go ahead and release the retainage immediately. We can wait 31 days. However, the seeding was growing and well established more than 31 days ago. Steve and I just didn't have an opportunity to get together to wrap this up. So that's the two-part motion, is to accept it as final and release the retainage now.
Do we need two motions or just one?
Should. Probably should do two.
I move that we accept the project as final.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Moved by Esti, second by Flournoy. Any questions? Now please call the roll.
Esti?
Yes.
Flournoy?
Yes.
Rasmussen?
Yes.
Ham?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Toohill?
Yes.
Gandy?
Yes.
Motion to release $15,000 retainage on the Highway 1 water main project.
Second.
Okay, moved by Anderson, second by Flournoy. Any questions? Now please call the roll.
Anderson?
Yes.
Flournoy?
Yes.
Gandy?
Yes.
Ham?
Yes.
Esti?
Yes.
Toohill?
Yes.
Rasmussen?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Next resolution is an amendment to the personnel policy. Judy, you want to talk about that?
Yes. As our different departments are working sometimes under the numbers of ideal numbers of employees, I'm going to put that in there. We are finding that at times, as we have someone already out, like on maternity leave or sick leave or something, and vacations are coming up, there are at times it's not possible for people to get all of their vacation time in ahead of their anniversary date. And we have had the standing process through the years of the city of Fairfield that you use your vacation or you lose it. So in assistance to try to help employees get that vacation time, which is necessary, we wrote 12.6 as that kind of extenuating circumstance where we already have we're at critical stage. I liked how that was worded. Critical stage because we need the numbers to stay status for a time period till we get one or the other employee back into full service before we take someone else out on vacation. And so what we recommended in the 12.6 is that the city administrator or the department directors have that option to roll forward vacation time that is waiting for someone during that time when their superior has had to say, I can't approve this vacation request because of this critical number of employees. The other thing, I want to go here. What we do have for staff is remarkable. And I went to the Masden Barns the other night, and I had just heard that a team of Belgians, each horse has their towing capacity, right? Like in a sledge pull. But the thing that makes a pair so strong is they literally challenge each other beyond what they could naturally do. And I was glad that I got to talk to the fellow that had the 4 horses in the paddock last Saturday night. And so as I was sitting and listening to our department directors talk about the difficulty to help employees disengage sometimes, I thought that's what it's like, because this fellow was telling me how he could literally watch horses rise to the challenge even though they were tired, right? Because they've been paired up with another. And that's what I'm thinking here. We have some tremendous people with tremendous skills, but there are times they too need a break. So going with that, that's part of this whole purpose, is to try to help department heads do their best so that they can serve everyone in their best capacity so that they get the full. If not, then there would be a payout if it can't be rolled forward, just because at that point it might become impractical because the employee is also gaining more weeks of vacation and in that next coming year. So that is what 12.6 is about in that type of extenuating circumstance, as we just try to keep a full team of staff. The second issue that we made 12.7 is for those that are employees that have like 1 to 5 years. Sometimes they are asking that they could roll forward into the next year because, again, moving through budget periods, move a week or two to the next year so they can combine, especially if they know there's a long distance wedding or some such situation where they would want to be out of town longer. And so that is what 12.6 is about, so that we can give some better assistance there throughout all the departments. If you have any questions.
12.7.
Thank you.
Yes.
I said 12.6 for both. Beg your pardon.
And that is only for employees with 2 weeks vacation, right?
Right,
Yes.
for that smaller, because that helps them have that choice so that they can do some of these things that they know are coming up that they would like to make provision for, instead of using, because we're really encouraging all of our staff members to use vacation first, personal days second, and then comp time third. And that's just a recommendation. It's up to them, but it will, because the comp days keep accumulating, but the first 2 they can lose. So we want to see to it that for that accrued and earned, that they have it to their best advantage. And then also we have staff that has true vacation for their minds and bodies. So are there any questions? There are a lot of other little factors I've made notes of here that especially that thing of making sure that we as a whole council are working with our department leaders to see to it that they are fully staffed. I know it's getting, we have some interesting things going on there, let's just go there, but that's a place I know that as a council, we need to start putting some more focused attention, so.
Can I just clarify
Yeah.
something? So, the vacation leave can be paid out or carried forward. Paid out meaning like the employee is going to be working that week, and so they're just going to get their wage or carried
The
forward.
vacation,
right?
yeah, they get paid for that vacation time that they were unable to take because of that
Because they're
extenuating.
working, right?
They'll get paid twice.
They'll get paid twice.
They get paid twice.
Once
Well,
for
they'll get
working
paid-
and the vacation.
You get paid during vacation, so they'll get that pay.
Right. No, I mean, but you're also, so you get your wage for the week that you're working, and then you also get that wage again. You get it twice.
For whatever number of days you might have.
Okay.
That you're not taking as vacation.
Okay. And then in the extenuating circumstance, the city will approve or postpone the city administrator's vacation request. The administrator will approve for the administrative department or department director. So there's like a hierarchy of who can approve the
Right.
request.
So that they're not, yeah, so there's operating through that chain of command so
Okay.
that we have more than one level, just as a city would be for the administrator, yes.
Oh, okay. So the city is not approving the department employee's request. That goes to the director and then the, okay.
Right,
Okay,
right.
thanks.
We just felt that helped keep it transparent and accountable on all the way around.
Mhm.
Anything else there that you would have any questions about? Thank you.
I would
Okay,
make-
so I'll take a motion.
Make the motion that we approve these additions to the personnel
Okay.
manual.
Moved by Flornoy. Is there a second?
Second?
Second by Rasmussen. Any other discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Flournoy?
Yes.
Rasmussen?
Yes.
Ham?
Yes?
Toohill?
Yes.
Gandy?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Esti?
Yes.
Next resolution, consideration of amendment to labor equipment rates. Do you want to talk about this, Doug?
I can. I just need to get my notes. So we are, as we discussed at the last council meeting, that we will be implementing an excise tax for our electric charging station at .026 cents. After speaking with the auditor, which he just left, had said that we were originally going to amend the ordinance to change the rates, but they said that we need to amend the ordinance and then to accommodate for a resolution so that we can revisit the rate changes over via resolution once a year, because rate changes will fluctuate. They could fluctuate from year to year. We may need to have an increase, and we don't want to have to amend an ordinance every single time that we need a rate change. So before you is an amendment and a resolution in regards to the rate increase for our electric vehicle charging station.
Just to clarify, Doug, we have 2 stations, is that correct?
No, just one.
One station.
With 2 chargers.
Okay. Okay.
Yes.
And so the resolution is before you first. And then the next one is the ordinance that takes out the charges. So then each year, the resolution will get reviewed and we'll leave the ordinance steady. So,
So the new rate will be 32.6 cents
Yes.
per kilowatt hour.
Yes.
The 30-cent base plus 2.6 cents excise tax. That's the new tax that we're considering here tonight. And then next January, or whenever it's necessary, I guess, we can review the rates and see if they need to be adjusted. Because the light is going to raise their bills at some point.
And we review them annually in January, right? That's
Yeah,
what the
along with the
ordinance says.
schedule that you
Yeah.
see before us.
So first, we need to amend the resolution to eliminate the rates, right?
To add the rate.
To add the rates to the resolution.
Okay, and then we need to amend the ordinance
To remove.
To
to
take
remove
out.
the rates, so we only have to do resolution moving forward.
Change the language in the
And so
resolution.
on the agenda, is that the order you want us to deal with this in, resolution first?
Yeah, I think that's fine. That's the way we've got it.
Okay.
So, yeah, let's take the resolution first. So we'll be adding the chargers on there.
So I make the motion to pass the resolution that amends the labor and equipment rates by adding the EV charging rates to that list.
Okay.
Second.
Moved by Flournoy, second by Anderson. Any questions? Not, please call the roll.
Flournoy.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Esti.
Yes.
Gandy.
Yes.
Ham.
Yes.
Rasmussen.
Yes.
Toohill.
Yes.
And so the next is the ordinance, and this will be the first reading of taking out those charges on the ordinance.
Okay, there's a little bit of change in language here too, where we state in here in section 2, E, we'll review the rates annually in January, and that we will establish any new rates if we choose to do so by resolution, not by ordinance. And we're striking the reference to the level 2 charges in this ordinance, because they're not going to appear annually in the resolution.
Correct.
So I make the motion to move this from the first to second reading.
Okay, moved by Flournoy,
Second.
second by Gandy. Further discussion? Not, please call the roll.
Flournoy.
Yes.
Gandy.
Yes.
Rasmussen.
Yes.
Ham.
Yes.
Toohill.
Yes.
Esti.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
I didn't open a public hearing for
I was
that.
gonna ask that.
Sorry, my fault. Do you want to say anything, any public comment about that particular ordinance? No? Okay, so I'll close that public hearing. I kind of did it backwards, sorry about that, but. Then the next is ordinance prohibiting engine brake use. So I will open the public hearing on that. This is the first reading. Does anyone want to speak to that? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing, and you want to just quickly talk
So-
about that?
Yeah, Public Safety and Transportation met before the last council meeting, and we discussed the engine brake. We had a request to consider an engine brake ordinance within city limits. And so Mr. Morrissey was kind enough to go and look at surrounding communities and draft an ordinance for us that mirrors a similar ordinance in a surrounding community. So this will prevent the use of engine brakes or downshifting, excessive engine noise coming in from any direction within the city limits.
Do we need a separate ordinance to put up signs
I was
that
wondering.
state no engine braking allowed?
Don't think you do, no.
Just put them up?
Put them up. yeah.
Where would they go?
Entrance points into, so,
Highway
Like
1?
Highway- one
Highway entrance points
Just 4, one on-
specifically? So
One on the
like
north and south side
Burlington
of Highway 1
Highway
and
1
east and
Got it.
west of
past
Burlington.
34.
Got it.
Melanie, are there any other hot points that we would need to hit coming into town? Maybe down on Libertyville Drive?
Depending on where you put it.
Yeah, we're gonna do 5. We can check on Libertyville. We'll check with Joe. The 5 one was gonna be a 2.
Not Pleasant Plain Road?
Yeah, please come to the microphone.
They're usually
This was
out
a
in
group
front of
effort.
places where there's an incline.
Yeah.
Yes, so
Okay.
one discussion was to have it on 34 at the south exit.
Mm-hmm.
So anything on Highway 1 or 34 will have to go to DOT for approval of putting up that sign. I mean, we still own it, but any traffic control device that's in DOT right away, we have to get their permission for.
Even on 34 within city limits? Business 34?
Business 34, no.
Okay.
34, I was meaning the bypass.
Bypass,
34,
okay.
yes.
Yes.
Do you mean, can you put that on the ramp coming down, or where exactly?
It would be before they come onto the
You
ramp,
gotta be inside the city limits before you put it up, right? So,
unless we get DOT permission.
No, even if it's in city limits, we have to get DOT permission. Because it's,
So where are you thinking that would go then, like on the south side?
I was thinking you would put it on the eastbound lane somewhere between the on-ramp and the off-ramp, or off-ramp and on-ramp, because if it's eastbound, it's off first and then on.
That one's backwards, that's right.
right. Leaving town?
Eastbound, the south interchange. I would put it at the top of the hill, at the top of the hill. Yes.
Which side of the 4-lane?
Because there's just a little bit of that, or that interchange is inside the city limits, so I would put it there as they're going down the hill
To stop.
Crow Creek.
You can put it wherever you want. We don't have to approve it, right?
You don't have to, you don't have to. No.
Yeah.
We're not gonna do an ordinance or anything like
DOT.
that.
So I was
You guys are
thinking,
just messing with us now, aren't you?
Well,
didn't
why-
Connie say, oh, I thought it was later than what it was, never mind.
No, but seriously, like, are there, other than the obvious, which the obvious would be Highway 34 and Highway 1, are there other points of entry where engine braking would be a concern, such as Pleasant Plain or Libertyville Road?
Or Brookville.
Or Brookville Road?
yeah.
So Brookville Road, we aren't out far enough.
You can also keep re-analyzing as the police department gets complaints. We
See where it
can add
is
signs
needed.
pretty cheap through. Joe Hurd gets them through Iowa
Oh, at prison, yep. And this is probably already an established template. It's already been designed. Perfect, okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And Melanie, our staff, will put those up?
Yep.
Okay.
While we're speaking of signs, there's a speed limit sign that's been laying in 30 on Burlington for a long time.
Yep, they've been busy picking up trees or something, I don't know, but we'll get to it.
I thought maybe you just forgotten about it.
Possibly, I don't know.
I'm glad you
Just
brought that
because you
up.
drive
'cause I
by
meant
it
to-
every day.
I drive by.
I drive by it
Joe
too,
today.
I drive by it too, Doug, it's
I
okay.
meant to call Joe. I was gonna send him a text last night.
Joe
I
was on
forgot.
Ragbri, so no one called.
Nobody
no
called Joe,
left this
so.
week.
So anyway, so Public Safety and Transportation asked for this ordinance, and I'd make a motion to move from first, second reading.
Okay,
Second.
moved by Anderson, second by Esti. Any other questions? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Anderson?
Yes.
Esti?
Yes.
Ham?
Yes.
Toohill?
Yes.
Gandy?
Yes.
Rasmussen?
Yes.
Flournoy?
Yes.
Hey, Chief Thomas, just since you're there at the mic for public information, remind us again how this is gonna be ticketed.
It will be like under any city ordinance, simple misdemeanor. Once you guys put it in there, it'll be a traffic ticket.
Traffic ticket.
Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
I just wanted people to make sure they knew how it was gonna be ticketed.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, good question. Okay, ordinance 1226, this is establishing a franchise agreement with ITC Midwest LLC. This is the third and final reading. I'll open the public hearing. Does anybody want to speak on that? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing, and council, want to push this through the third and final reading. And just as a reminder to the public, this is allowing ITC to use our right-of-way.
So I'd make the
Can I
motion.
move-
Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
No.
I'll go ahead.
I'll make the motion that we go ahead and I guess what happens after the third and final reading now?
It is.
It's the third and final reading, so I move that we approve the ordinance.
The third reading.
Yes. It's moved by Esti,
Second.
second by Flournoy. Any discussion? If not, please call the roll.
Esti?
Yes.
Flournoy?
Yes.
Toohill?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Rasmussen?
Yes.
Gandy?
Yes.
Ham?
Yes.
Okay, under the mayor's report, I have none, except for I had a great vacation last week. So, but glad to be back. City attorney report.
Yes, Your Honor. I don't know how urgent it is, but the council referred a couple sessions ago to the Animal Control Review Board to consider the question of the number of animals that a person can have as a pet, basically, under our animal control ordinances. The folks down on Buchanan dropped off a copy of their petition with more signatures on it, an extra page of signatures since the last meeting. They're pretty anxious. I just mentioned that because if the Animal Control Review Board can be bumped up a little bit as far as when they consider this, we've been holding off citing anybody with the idea that we might have an ordinance that's very specific about the number of animals. So I don't care what you decide, I just, that's out there, so whenever that board can give its 2 cents opinion on this, it would be helpful.
Yep, we're trying to reach out to them.
Is this at state or local
It's
level?
a
animal
local-
control
and
order
We
is
have
a
an animal
local.
control ordinance, but it doesn't state a number of animals that you can have. So it just says that you can have them up to the point where they create a law violation by a public disturbance. So, I mean, we can have probably a trial on how bad it has to be a public disturbance, but if we have a specific number, that would be like most of the surrounding communities having their ordinances. So, or maybe they don't want to do that, but at least we'd hear back, okay?
Okay, great.
Secondly, I was at the property committee meeting when there was a discussion about something called parklets. And Chris Johnson is redoing the old Armory building. It's gonna be a nice place. But he wants something that's under ordinance number 1143. We were talking about where did that really come from. I think we might have to maybe take another look at the way that ordinance was worded as far as alleyway and parking space, dining requirements and rules. The last part of the ordinance deals with those two things, but I think the lay of the land over at the old Armory is different than the lay of the land was when we adopted this ordinance 1143 over in front of Revelations and the strip that went up on the west side of the square for a couple blocks. We were anticipating something that lays a little different there. Maybe it's all an engineering problem. I don't know, Melanie. What do you think?
Did we not address
Yeah.
this last council meeting with we approved his request to have an out of ordinance.
For the variance,
Yeah,
Yeah.
his
But are
variance
we-
was
Yeah,
approved.
you've talked about it. I just, at the time, we didn't have the ordinance specifics in front of us. And after looking at it, I think maybe what he wants to do might require us to amend our ordinance.
Right, so, we had him proceed with, kind of a staff variance, so to speak, based off of the council decision. It's certainly something that we can bring to council for a permanent change, based off of what John's saying, but, this is the first one I've seen built in the 10 years since the ordinance was passed. So maybe something will work into the codification
Have we
rather.
really had that ordinance 10 years?
Probably.
No.
I don't know. It was before I started and I've been working here 6 years.
It was after I got here, and I've only been here 9 years.
Okay, all right, so.
Rounding, we're rounding.
We'll go between,
So
somewhere
between
between 6 and 9 years, so.
So,
anyway.
yeah, so I think
Yeah.
we addressed his concerns and we approved his request.
With the variances, so.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, but maybe there is a permanent change, like
Yeah.
John said.
Okay.
Yeah, I think in the end, we may end up with the variances creating the amendment to the ordinance, is what it amounts to, because I think if it works, we'll want to do it again.
Okay,
So,
great.
only other thing, we've got something going on with the ambulance 28E Service Agency Board. The county attorney, myself, and the attorney for the hospital, Vanessa, who also is the appointed 28E agency attorney. We filed an interim report and request with the district court asking for some kind of abbreviated hearing soon. What's going on is by the time we get to October 1st, when our current care ambulance contract expires, we will have accrued approximately $100,000 under our agreed stipulated amounts at our mediated settlement. We have all agreed to put money into that pot, a third. Our question mark, though, is we thought we were going to get proof from Care Ambulance of their compliance before we paid some money out. That has not happened yet. We're going to really catch up with October 1st faster than we want to. The county's doing a pretty good job of getting itself ready to step in on October 1st. But our goal in filing this is to see if they'll lawyer up. We haven't heard anything back from their lawyer in a month or two. We've been asking for the proof. We'll pay the money if they show us the proof, or we'll have the court condemn as much funds of the money as is justified by the proof. That's the only purpose in having a hearing, and I think if the three of us on the 28E side and whatever lawyer Bob Libby with Care Ambulance puts in the situation, it can be talked out in front of a judge and probably get there. But at this point, we don't want to be on October 1st, have a $100,000 dispute on our hands, and be trying to have them be nice to us as far as a smooth transition. So our game is to see if we can get that accomplished in the next maybe 4 to 6 weeks, have a peaceful end of August and go into September with transition, all about just people sharing information as far as the takeover. So, but that's what's going on. We'll probably at the next meeting inform you about a time that's been set and maybe some information from the service provider as far as either proof or disagreements with us, so we at least know where we stand.
Mr. Morrissey, have we, I know we approved the additional, the request for additional funds. Have we paid any of it out?
We haven't paid any of it.
Nobody has. County, hospital,
Nobody
city?
has.
Okay.
Each of the agency governmental entities has earmarked it. We've earmarked our amount, matches the other agencies. Their attorney knows that we have monies that we've set back for it, and we all agreed to do that. But we've also had this issue of them stopping the doing of their routine in-town transport work that they cut off almost immediately after the mediated settlement. And that's a different bone to pick, but it still, it's something we'll be talking over with whoever's representing. We don't think that the attorney, Mr. Ort from New London, is representing Bob Libby right now. So the 28E is not quite sure who we're dealing with, but we haven't been getting responses back from him. And Tom and I go to these board meetings. We've been having one about every 3 weeks, I guess. So
Seems like more than that.
we really aren't any better informed than we were probably 2 or 3 months ago about where we are with care, though. So the ambulance provider is just kind of ghosting us. At least that's the way I see it, Tom. I'm not misspeaking, am I?
No.
No.
And he apparently verbally gave the indication that they are not doing transfers because they are not receiving the extra funds. So that, you know, it may end up being a wash. You know, we may not pay it and they may not do it. So, I mean, I think it sounds like that's the position he's taking right now, so.
This is one where it would be nice if we can have a full release and satisfaction exchanged by both sides of this disagreement by October 1st. Seems like the ending month of where we've been with our ambulance transitions. Almost every time results in somebody being sued if they haven't been already. And if we can avoid that and end the litigation we've got right now in the injunction, that'd be a nice way out and a better way to transition. So we'll find out in the next few days whether we're going to have a hearing on this in the next couple weeks. So
Okay, great.
that's all I have.
Okay, great, thank you. Under committee and board reports, we have Ways and Means and Personnel, and I think we've kind of addressed both
we
those
covered
issues. Do you have
everything.
anything else?
Nope.
And,
No.
okay. So, and then water and sewer utilities.
Yeah, sure.
He was on the phone, so.
Water and sewer met on the 13th. Martha, Doug, and Rebecca were present. I called in and did it via phone. We had a number of requests. Doug felt, we felt comfortable going over all these, that Doug has the authority to allow on his own. We did them all in the meeting together the first time. And we had a number of requests for filling swimming pools, watering garden, hose left on. Some of these were $20 requests that we recommend not be approved. They don't fall within the guidelines of anything that we've ever approved prior. We did have one request that was made by a customer at 1106 South 4th that they had a leak in the basement spanning over 2 bills with the sewer charge of $727.91. After inspection, they have a floor drain in their basement, so the water did go into the sewer system and was treated. So we recommend denying that charge. And we had a second request from the office manager at Utopia Park that one of the trailers had a water leak into the ground, I believe from the bathroom, and a leaking water heater. And it was inspected, and it was determined that that did leak into the ground, and there was a $216.54 sewer charge that we recommend be forgiven on that one. The other topic we discussed was, since we get all these swimming pool requests around this time of year, is to put a flyer in the water bill. We're going to do one now, I believe, and then we're going to do it again in the spring. And Rebecca has drawn up, and Rebecca in the department has drawn up a flyer just to notify people that they are available to purchase an outdoor water meter for use of watering gardens, watering lawns, filling swimming pools, which will reduce the sewer charge portion of their bill for that portion, that part of the water being used. It's about a $300 charge for the meter. If their water meter is inside their house, I know ours is, you have to have it installed by a plumber. If it's outside, then the city comes and hooks it up, I understand, right?
In
Ye-
the, yeah.
Yes, in the pit, yes, yep. So there may be additional charges on having the meter itself installed. That's a one-time charge. Is it a $10 a month? There's a meter charge once you have the
There
meter.
is a meter charge, yeah.
Yes.
It's about $10 a month.
About $10 a month. So, but for some of the swimming pool charges and stuff, if you extrapolate that $300 one-time charge out over a couple of years, it more than pays for itself right away. So we are going to notify people now and then again in the spring next year, prior to people opening up their pools, that this is an available option to them.
Quick question, if you have
Sure.
an outdoor, like if your meter's in a pit, do you have to have city staff, or can you use a plumber to have it installed?
The meter itself gets set by city staff.
By city staff?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And the $10 a month charge
The
is,
thing is, what we really reached the decision was that, you know, with the swimming pool issue that exists, because there are a lot of pools in Fairfield, which I think is wonderful. I mean, that's not a problem. But when it comes to the water, then there seems to sometimes be a problem. And in terms of filling the pool, emptying the pool, all these kind of issues. And then also the other problem is a number of people who have gardens or flowers or something, and a great deal of watering oftentimes has to be done and is done. So then all of a sudden their water bill gets out of hand. And so those are the individuals that I think we were trying to hope might consider, if that's something they do every year, that they might consider doing a water meter, which would be beneficial in terms of tracking that prior to their coming to the committee and saying, this is an excessive bill and we would like to have you, take a look at it and help us. So I think that's kind of where we, issued, we sort of went to Becca and said, would you draft something that we could include in the water bills?
Great. Thank you. So,
just one question.
yeah, go ahead.
The $10 per month water fee is only for the second meter.
That is the flat rate for the meter. then you also get charged consumption on top of that, but there's no sewer charges on that.
Every meter gets charged $10.
Right.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
And $10 is an
'Cause it doesn't show up on
approximation
your-
because
it
I
doesn't show up
can't
on your
quite
bill.
remember what it is.
It doesn't show up on the bill when you get your water bill.
Correct, it's part of the consumption, it's wrapped
Right.
into it.
So just making that clear.
Mm-hmm,
Right.
right.
Okay. So I think we need to go back to the refund for
Yes.
sewer at the MIU trailer.
216.54.
Yeah, so do you want to make a motion on that, Tom?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we forgive the sewer charges of $216.54
Second.
for Utopia Park trailer.
Okay, moved by Two Hills, second by Flournoy. Any other discussion or questions? No, please call the roll.
Toohill?
Yes.
Flournoy?
Yes.
Rasmussen?
Yes.
Ham?
Yes.
Gandy?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Esti?
Yes.
Great. Anything else, John?
No, I think that was it. I'd like to thank Rebecca for doing all the work she did on this.
Okay, great, thank you. Administrator and department reports. Melanie, you gonna go first here?
Okay, a few things that I didn't have on my project update that I thought about since I wrote it. You've been seeing for a lot of other lakes in the area that swimming has been closed. I just talked with Steve from the water department, and Waterworks gets tested every week, and so far is still okay for swimming. So we will let people know if it gets to the point where an E. coli level is such that it is not recommended for swimming. Which that takes me to my next item is I did post something on the city's Facebook page that talks about ways to be notified of meetings from our website. If you get any complaints or comments on how that works, let me know. Haven't gotten a lot of feedback from people as far as whether it works that well or not, but that is one mechanism that we have. Also on our Facebook page, so I have created a folder called Time Sensitive Announcements, and this would be where we put something that we don't have a lot of lead time, such as if we have to shut down the beach due to E. coli or roads closed, or any emergency that would come from the police department. We're trying to put it under there, again, thinking people can be notified of postings in that particular subfolder compared to everything else that gets put on the city's page. We understand that there might be something that we need to get out to the public a little more quickly. So trying to, I guess, maybe organize some of those announcements to help with the dissemination of information.
When that does happen at Waterworks, do we put up signage or cones or anything?
I believe they put up cones.
Cones?
Yeah, I think maybe last year there was a small period of time, but maybe the year before there was a longer period of
I
time.
know it's been closed before, I just didn't know how we
Yeah.
indicate that.
Yep. Any other questions on those? Okay. As far as project updates, a lot of stuff are hopefully coming off of the list soon. Morgan Street was paved last year. I know we had a lot of complaints about the seating, and so we were finally able to get a walkthrough with French Reiniger and city staff, and not that we didn't believe everyone who had made the complaints, but we were able to get out there, and there's really only a few spots that can remain, so the contractor will need to disc everything, rework it, and reseed. But other than that, the project was in good shape, and after the seeding is done, we can work to close that project out. Highway 1 is finally moving fairly smoothly. Still a few utilities, but making great progress. The gray concrete at the roundabout is complete. And so they just have the colored islands of the roundabout done to finish. That's likely going to happen this week, then with some painting and sealing of the joints the following week. And we're hoping by maybe the second week of August it is open back up. So Still thinking that we can get it open before school starts, and those traffic lights removed down in that area. The 2022 street resurfacing project, which included some overlays as well as some seal coats. Again, just had trouble getting the walkthrough scheduled. There is a drainage issue on Adams that was not necessarily the contractor's fault, and so city crews are going to install an intake in that area. But other than that, we'll recommend the project for acceptance at a later date. And my marker bled through my pages, so I don't know where my stars are. Okay. The fire station, well, let me just, the Chautauqua Park bathrooms is not the only project that has been over budget. So on the preliminary estimates that we're seeing at the fire station, we still have some funding needs at the fire station. So Doug and Rebecca and myself and Brett met with the architect this week, and so we talked about some cost savings measures, but we also discussed additional grants that we'll be working towards. As part of that meeting, we decided to postpone the bidding. Originally, the idea was to bid it now, as soon as the demolition is complete. But we will be postponing the bidding until early 2024 to allow some additional grant opportunities. Particularly Washington County Foundation has a fall application cycle, so we'll be trying to hit that here in the next month.
How many times have you applied for Washington County funding?
Just once.
Just once?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, for this project.
Okay.
I don't know how many times the department has for other needs. But
This has to do with the Riverside Casino
Yes.
funding?
Yeah.
Have we ever received any funding from that?
No.
I don't think Jefferson County has ever received anything.
Yeah.
And I'm still going to continue with the narrative that our fire departments, I mean, I don't need to convince you guys, but if you know anyone on the board, but the narrative is, you know, the tower is a regional training tower. It will be used by departments that service Washington County. And, you know, we've responded to fires with the Brighton Fire Department, with the Richland Fire Department, both of which serve Washington County. And, you know, having the opportunity for them to train, or even Washington, the city of Washington, to come down and use it would be absolutely acceptable in this case. And so we'll continue with that narrative and see where we get. Anything else on the fire station? I know I kind of hurried through that, but that's kind of, okay. Then the Lamson Woods, Naturescape, that work is coming along great. They've almost have it all installed, but they've ran into a lot of debris, from sins of the past. Somebody must have used it as a junkyard or something like that. So city staff is going to be working quite a bit to over-excavate the area and clean it up. They will be fencing off the play area to discourage people kids particularly, from going elsewhere, areas that we have not over-excavated and put down clean dirt. Again, it's something you don't see from the surface, but once you start to dig into it, you see sins of the past that were buried in that area. And so really, I guess what I want the public to know is, even though the stuff is up, we really encourage them not to be using that until we have an opportunity to clean it up and fence off the rest of the area. And then lastly, the thing everyone has been waiting for, city crews are scheduled to remove the lights at 2nd and Broadway next week, pending DOT approval of their work within right-of-way permit. So, great. The goal was to get it done before August 16th or whatever is on the signs, and so I think we'll make it. Great.
Say, we were bold when we put a date on those signs.
Well, that was the date that we had to put a date as far as when they were getting turned off. That was the date that they were turned off a
okay.
year ago.
Yes.
And so the goal was to get them down within a year.
Within a year.
So,
Great. Thank you, Melanie.
yep.
Any questions to city
Thank you.
engineer? Okay, great, thank you. And Doug?
I'm going to expand a little bit on everything that we've spoken about this evening with the Ways and Means Committee and the electric charging stations. We realized that I think that we have 3 separate charging stations throughout the city. We own one that has 2 chargers, but we will be in the future be seeing more, and that's kind of what we're realizing, that electric cars and vehicles, trucks, equipment, they're coming. The city itself will be looking at, adopting some electric vehicles where they're, could be prudent. And so it's just something that we need to keep in the forefront, that these stations won't necessarily last forever, so we need to maintain them. So eventually we'll be increasing fees in the future, and I just want to be mindful of that. That is something that we'll keep an eye on. With the personnel committee, I want to parallel what Councilwoman Ham has said, that we have a very dedicated staff. Over the last 2 months now, I have gotten to know more and more and driven around, watched our staff working throughout the city. I can tell that they're dedicated, especially when I have to ask them to go home, because I know that they're working long hours, longer than I do, and I appreciate that. So they work with what we have, and it is humbling to know that this staff that does work here is committed to this city, but we also need to take care of them. And so I appreciate everything that the personnel committee has done for them. The water and sewer committee, I wanted to gauge the temperature of the room, and so to speak, that although I do have the authority to approve some of these fees and overages, I wanted to understand, do I approve them all? Do I approve none? What am I supposed to be looking at here? I now have an idea. I have no issues whether all of them go to the Water and Sewer Committee, because just today I've been asked to approve 2 more. And that list keeps growing, and typically it's swimming pools or late fees or what have you. So I will leave that up to council if you want me to go ahead and move forward with my judgment, or whether you want me to go ahead and move them to the Water and Sewer Committee. I'm okay. I like the collaborative approach. I'm not always right, and I think that multiple minds and voices can help guide the situation and be fair. And I think it's reasonable that there's no personal feelings involved. It's just fair across the board, and that guidance is much appreciated. The one thing that I want to move on to is the brush pile, or the brush and compost pile. And Joe and I have been working very hard at trying to figure out the best approach. Our inventory of compost and mulch is beyond what's being consumed. With this last storm, I believe in the packet you saw pictures of how much that has grown. And Joe actually, and I'm going to go ahead and pass this along, Joe gave me a spreadsheet. He keeps track of how much money we spend annually. We spend about $80,000 a year on this site. It's a service that we provide for the community, but there are ways that we can actually continue this service in a more cost-efficient manner. We're talking about an alternative burn site. We went and actually looked at that site, and actually there's another site that he wants us to look at as well. But our tub grinders will not handle those big logs that are being dumped. So those actually have to be cut up and removed, or they have to be burned, disposed of in some other manner. They can't go through that big machine that they do bring in. But, the tub grinder that we rent I think it's $12,000 a grind. I could be wrong.
I was gonna say, I think he told me 11, but.
Yeah, and-
11 or 12, yeah.
And he told me that to buy one's about $450,000. So it's better to rent them. We need to continue doing this. The composting that we do, there's trash bags, there's debris removal that can't be turned. But the site that we're actually using, he still has to get in there and dig that up because it's leveling out, and that's actually compost being broken down because it's not being used fast enough. So we've got more inventory that we can use, but we're still working on like a schedule and then working on a development plan, and we're addressing that as quickly as we possibly can. There's much more that we've been doing, but we don't want to be here all night, but this is just the snapshot of what's occurred in the last 2 weeks.
Great, thank you. All righty. Thank you, council, for tonight, and I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Toohill,
Second?
second by Ham. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Meeting adjourned.